What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Photos Farah channel, also known as the Julian Farah YouTube channel. Thanks for tuning in. If you guys are new to my channel, this is about photography. Anything gear related, reviews, tips and tricks, anything you'd like to know about photography, we come to you live with that. I had a question by one of my subscribers actually when I started demonstrating flash photography and how becoming a lighting photographer makes you a better photographer. This person asked me, how can I use my flash in the sun? Well, I said to him, no problem, I could do a video for that. But the question he had was, I use prime lenses, so 1.2 lenses, 1.8 lenses, basically lenses that have big openings, large prime openings. And he wanted to know how he can still get that blurry background, that bokeh background. Because obviously a flash is made to fill shadows, but once you get that flash off the camera, as you've seen in my previous videos, everything just changes. The whole dynamics of the image change, the sculpting of your image changes. So the first thing I'll tell you is each camera has a flash sync speed, meaning there's a limit in which the flash can shoot with your camera in synchronization. For instance, at Canon, it's 1/200th of a second. Some Canons are at 1/180th, some Nikons are at 1/250th. That means that you can use your flash pretty much within its full range of power. After that, you go into what's called high-speed synchronization. And that basically means the flash is emitting a series of strong pulses. Why is flash high-speed synchronization not very useful for speed lights? A, they suck a lot of power. You're probably losing 2 or 3 stops of power from your speed light. Not to mention the heat and the batteries that you're gonna go through. It's not a good idea. High-speed synchronization is related more for big strobes, such as ProPhoto B2s, strobes with 200, 300, or 400 watts per second. When you're talking about speed lights at 60, 70 watts per second, I wouldn't recommend going into high-speed synchronization. So you're probably asking yourself, well, what's the problem then? I can just go to f16 or f18, open up my aperture, and I can basically bring my shutter speed down to under 1/200th of a second in broad sunlight. I'm not sure if that makes sense. I'll repeat it again. So you're actually closing down your aperture to f16, f18, obviously to let less light come into the camera. So when you're in broad sunlight, say for example, I look at my aperture, let's take a look and see. So if I go to my live view, and I go to my aperture here, I'm at 100 ISO, and right now, at f5, I'm at 1/400th of a second. So the person filming me, I'm trying to shoot the subject at 1/400th, it doesn't work. I'm beyond my flash's sync speed. My flash won't be at its proper potential. So I have to bring my aperture down, in my case, to around 1/200th of a second, f8. Well, at f8, I'm not really getting that bokeh effect that I want. Everything in the background is going to be in focus. So it's nice for some opportunities. If you want everything in focus, if your aim is to capture the entire environment, no problem. But when you want to capture those dynamic photos, nice creamy backgrounds, bokeh, what do? How do you use one speed light to overpower the sun while still retaining that background blur with a wide aperture? Well, you can do it with one speed light, and I promised that I would show you how. It does come with a few limitations. Don't expect to use a modifier such as an umbrella or a softbox. The flash will not even have enough power, even with using the method that I'm going to show you. Modifiers like this. This is the Rogue flash bender that I've showed in previous videos. I'm going to demonstrate. You might be able to get away with a small modifier like this, but anything larger, such as an umbrella or a softbox, you may not have enough power in direct sunlight. Go into the shade, not a problem. So what tool do you need to do this? Well, very simple. You need a neutral density filter. Most people don't know that neutral density filters before landscape photography were actually used for portraiture to close down the shutter speed of a camera and help keep the shutter speed within the flash speed synchronization. That's what they were originally used for. So what do you do if you have one speed light? You use a neutral density filter. Now I always tell people when you're investing in a neutral density filter, do not buy a cheap filter. Anything in the $20, $30 region, even from Tiffin, you might get some heavy color casting that might be hard to correct. It's very important, and I tell you to invest in a high quality filter. Something like Stingray, something like Format High Crest, BW. It's worth spending $80, $100 to get a good quality filter. Secondly, I also recommend getting the largest filter that you possibly can. Why is that? Because you can buy what you call step-up rings. And step-up rings allow you to use all your other lenses with that one filter. So let's say I have a 77mm filter and I want to use it on my 67mm lens. Well, you can buy a step-up ring that brings you from 67 to 77. You basically put one side on your 67mm lens and the other side opens up to use the filter on 77. You can buy entire kits of these step-up rings on Amazon. I think they have like 30 or 40 different step-up rings for something along the lines of $25. So I would highly regard that you buy the biggest filter you could and buy a set of good step-up rings. It's gonna basically save the day. So that gives you a brief background about what you're looking to do. So let's get right to it. People normally that don't shoot with flash do a couple things. First of all, what they do is when they're trying to overcombat the sun, they have the sun fall behind the model, using the sun as a beautiful hair light, and then they underexpose for the sky and bring up the shadows. Not the best method of doing things because boosting shadows brings out a lot of noise and image degradation. Or they go for what we call a high key look. A high key look is basically another style. It's a very light and airy look, and I think it's a beautiful style. Basically, most of your sky is mostly burnt out, and you're getting that soft, dreamy look. Wide open aperture, skin is very soft, almost out of focus. That's also a style. But what do you do if you want to get that lovely, dark, dramatic shot that you see in magazine covers where the model is almost popping out and the background is somehow very dark? Well, that, my friends, is where your flash comes in and where an ND filter will come in. I'm going to show you 4 or 5 different shots today with the ND filter and the flash, without the ND filter and the flash, no flash, and the flash mounted on the camera, direct firing, like a lot of people do these days. And I'm going to show you the results. So let's get to it. Okay, so now we have the model in frame. We're going to be using the sun as a hair light, and we're not going to be using a flash. So we're going to be going with what we call the high key look. This is the first style. So we're at 1/2000th of a second, 1/160th ISO, f2. We're going to focus on the model's face. And if you look on the screen, there you have it. Obviously it isn't perfect, but this gives you an idea of what the high key look is like. Basically, very, very bright, airy. Little of the highlights are blown. Obviously it could have been better, but this gives you an example of the high key look. No flash, and we're just trying to take a portrait of the model. Now we're gonna go ahead and try taking the same portrait with the flash on the camera aimed towards the model. So what most people will do to fill up the shadows and see if we can balance the light. So here we go. Okay. So we're firing the flash now, not in manual mode, but in ETTL mode. This is all gonna be automatic. I'm not gonna go into manual for this demonstration. So here we go. And automatically, you see, I see at f2, it's not possible. My shutter speed is locked at 1/200th, and if I fire, this is what's gonna happen. So look on the screen, and this is what happens. If you look at 1/200th of a second, the model, everything is white. You don't see it. The whole picture is literally blown out. And that's because if you look at the settings, I'm at 1/200th of a second, f2. I'm not allowed to shoot above 1/200th of a second. So now let's close down our aperture and try that again. So in order for me to get to my designated sync speed, I'm at right now f11. We'll take the shot at f11 with the flash firing directly on the camera. And at f11, this is what we get. We get a more balanced image, but it clearly looks like there's been a flash used. The model has a big hot spot on her head because the flash is directly firing at her. No modifier, bare bulb. So now you've seen 2 examples. One high key without any flash, and one with flash on the camera without any ND filter. And you notice that I ended up having to be at f11. I couldn't open up my aperture anymore because my limited sync speed of 1/200th stopped me from doing that. Now let's put on the ND filter and see. For this demonstration, I'm going to use a 5-stop ND filter. So it's going to reduce the light by 5 stops. They offer 2 stops, 3, 4, 10. I even have a 13-stop ND filter. I'm going to try with 5 stops, and I'm going to see how far down in my aperture I can actually go. Will it allow me to open up my aperture? Let's take a look. Okay, now we have the 5-stop ND filter on the front of my lens. We've taken the flash off the camera. We put it onto the flash full 45 degrees. We're using the sun as my model's hair light. We're gonna see with a 5-stop ND filter, what can I bring my exposure to? So I'm pretty much this. How far can I open up my aperture while staying within the 1 to 200th per second region? It's as simple as that. Let's see. At the same time, keep in mind an ND filter will also darken your image. It'll give you that darkened effect that you're looking for. The stronger the ND filter, the darker the effect. Okay, so now we have the ND filter on, 5 stops. We're at 1/16th power, meaning we don't need to be full power because we only have a 5-stop ND filter. We're on low ISO, 50 ISO. I was able to get down to F4. So a 5-stop ND filter was able to get me down to F4. So instead of F11, I've now got down to F4, meaning I'll get a little bit of bokeh, and I'm gonna darken the background. Let's take the shot. Here we go, F4, white balance is sunny. Looking at the model. Look on the back of the screen now. We've removed the flash off the camera. The shadows are a little bit sharp because there isn't any modifier. We've combated the sun now. We're getting darker. Look at the background, it's dark. There's now subject and separation. If you look at it compared to the first image, where the flash was directly on the camera, which looked, I would say, quite boring in comparison, we're now getting definition. There's something happening. What if we jump up now to another filter? So why don't we try a 13-stop filter and see if the difference will be as dramatic. Let me show you what that's going to be like. Okay guys, now we've put on a 13-stop filter. And if I look through my viewfinder, it's almost dark. I can see something, but it's going to be harder to shoot. Now, I'm at 1.6 my f-stop, 100 ISO, and I'm still within 1/200th of a second. My flash power has been brought up from 1/16 to 1/8 and a 1/7 of a stop. All this is going to be explained in my workshop, by the way, this summer. Let's take the shot and see what happens. So now if you look at the back of the camera, things have gotten even darker. I'm shooting in broad sunlight with one speed light, guys. I haven't put any gels, I haven't put any modifiers. I'm at 1/8 power. My last shot, I'm gonna put on a little Rogue $30 flash bender to enlarge the size of the light and a 1/4 CTO gel to warm up the flash. All that with one 70 per watt speed light. And I'm gonna see if I can still overpower the sun for you guys. What are the limitations, guys, that I told you they would be? Well, the limitations are, don't expect to light up the full model. About torso, and the flash does need to be quite close when you're dealing with a speed light. So it's about 2 feet away from the model. But I could have shot with a 7200, a 50mm, or 35. I would have got an amazing separation, amazing bokeh in my shot, instead of shooting at f16 where there's all kinds of background distortion. My background here is a fence. There's a fence and some yards behind me. So when I want to try and eliminate that, I use an ND filter. In this case, it was a 13 stop that worked for me. Let me put on my flash bender and let me put on my gel for you. Let's take one last shot and take a look. I put on my Rogue flash bender to enlarge the size of the light source, and I put on a 1/4 CTO gel. Between the modifier and the gel, I'm probably losing a stop or two of light. That's very significant when dealing with the sun. The sun is very powerful. The fact that I'm even able to overpower it with the speedlight is quite impressive from the beginning. So I've advanced the flash to the model to compensate for that power loss. I'm probably going to have to raise the flash power to full, but we're going to try that and see how it goes. And look at me. We're going to take one more shot. The flash power now is at 1/2. We take the shot at 1.4. Now guys, if we look at the back of the screen, look at the dramatic difference. The light source appears to be a little bit softer, of course, right? Because, well, we've enlarged the size of the light. The gel has compensated for her skin tone, and we've significantly overpowered the sun with a single speed light in broad daylight. And if you look in the back of her hair, you still have that nice golden light pouring in from the sun as a hair light, and you get that separation in the background. So guys, there you have it. How do you overpower the sun with just one speed light? For anybody who has any other questions after this video, I think I covered pretty much everything. I told you I'd be able to overpower the sun with one speed light, and I did it. And the results look amazing. When I started my career, I did it with one speed light, and then I eventually added a second, and I shot like that for probably close to 1.5 years. So my gear never limited me. These are 70-watt speed lights, and the modifiers cost $15 or $20. So gear never limits you, it's the know-how. And my last point becomes, the people who are watching this should know that there is going to be a workshop available in July, and in the summer, obviously, of this year. So when you leave with your newfound skills, remember something. Don't make the mistake that I made. It's not all about flash. When you leave with your newfound skills, don't shoot everything you do with flash. I did that for 1 year straight. I shot everything with my flash. I never wanted to let it go. Realize that there is even more to shooting than just flash. But with that being said, I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope it was educational. And remember people, stay visual, and until the next video.